The Nissan Ariya is in New Zealand again, and I've changed my opinion on it. We will get to all that in a sec. First, let us talk price and range. That's the important stuff you want to know. And you can buy a brand new entry-level Nissan Ariya, I think that's the best one, for 60 grand. For that, you get just shy of 400 k's on a charge. And as they say in Japanese, from there, the only way is oi. And we're off, and the eagle-eyed viewers among you will know that about a year ago I reviewed the Nissan Ariya. Yes, it was in New Zealand at the time. I'm back in it, so I'm going to keep this video like Danny DeVito, short and sweet. Basically, Nissan released the Ariya in New Zealand. They immediately pulled it because the timing and the pricing wasn't right at the time, at least that's my opinion. But now, much like Elton John's never-ending farewell tours, the Ariya is back again, but with a much more appealing price. Now I know what you're thinking, oh, it's $60,000, that's not a cheap family car, I can go out and buy a Honda Civic for less. No, you can't. A Honda Civic now costs exactly the same. Yes, cars are more expensive, which makes this quite tempting. I mean, it's a brand new, comfortable, well-appointed electric car that costs the same as a Honda Civic. It looks like price parity is pretty much here with EVs. Plus, with an EV, you don't have to buy petrol or diesel or replace belts and pulleys and spark plugs and exhaust repairs and filters and all that stuff I've wasted 30 years of my life and $100,000 fixing. You don't have to do that with an electric car. So what options do you get, you're wondering? Well, much like the police, you've got three variants. You have the entry-level Picard model, which is Engage. Then you have the advanced model. Then you have the top spec Evolve. Now I'll put all the details on the screen so you can see the essentials of what you get for your money, but basically the first two models, they share the same 160 kilowatt electric motor driving the front wheels, whereas the top spec one, well, that is grunty. That's got two electric motors and 290 kilowatts with 600 newton meters of torque. That's a rocket ship, but I specifically asked for the entry-level version for this video because I want to see if Nissan can still make a bargain car with all the options. Okay, maybe it's not a bargain, but it is very well priced compared to the competition. Plus, we are, let's face it, a nation of tightwads, and when it comes to tightwads, I rule supreme. So what do you get for your money? Well, let's start with gadgets, and we start with what's right in front of me. We've got 12.3-inch displays, two of them joined together. We have on the left-hand side the touchscreen infotainment system that controls all the usual stuff. It's got built-in maps, by the way, as well. And then on the right-hand side, this 12.3-inch display, well, that's your instrument cluster with all the information you need, how much range you've got, your speed, all that stuff. Now, the two displays are seamlessly joined, but there is sort of a dog's leg separating them. I quite like it, it's different. Although it's a very smooth dog's leg. It's like a shaved dog's leg. Yep, that sounded weirder than I thought. The infotainment system is endlessly customizable. You can add your own widgets, change the screen around as much as you like. It's also got a very decent reversing camera. It's not amazing, but it's decent. As for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, yes, it has both of them. However, they are wired. So there's just one little problem, and that is the USB port to use your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. The closest one is right down the bottom there. So if you have a USB cable like mine, it's longitudinally challenged. That means that you're going to have your phone in quite an awkward point. And that's annoying because it does come with wireless phone charging in here. It's a neat little storage spot that you can put your phone in there, and then you can close it and you can't see your phone. It's brilliant, but there needs to be a USB point in there too. Now, in order to keep the price down for this model, they have had to cut some stuff out. You don't get a heads-up display in this entry-level version. That's only the top spec one. Nor do you get an air purifier, and the same goes for things like heated rear seats. You don't get that in this entry-level version as well. Basically, go to Nissan's configurator on their website, check out all the stats. You'll see you can compare all three models together to see which has the best bang for buck. But personally, I still think this is it. Let's move on to design now, and I think from the exterior, I think it's pleasant, but not radical. It's not ugly. I think I prefer the rear of the car as opposed to the front of the car. The front just it sort of smacks of a 2012 Tesla, whereas the back still looks quite fresh. I do really like the side door panels though, because look how flat they are. They're almost perfectly flat. And if you know anything about cars, you know how hard it is to get door panels that are flat, because the bigger and flatter a panel is, the more it flexes. That's why quite often most cars, you'll have a ridge down the middle or a plastic cover holding a ridge, because that ridge gives it, well, rigidity. It makes it stronger. There is one thing I don't like about the outside, and that is those shiny piano black plastic coatings. You see them around the wheel arches and on the front grille and around the back of the car. That I don't think is a very good idea, because they look good now, right? Because this car's new. But give it 12 months and they are going to look worse than an instant kiwi. They're going to be so scratched. As for wheel options, you get 19-inch wheels on both the Engage and the Advanced models, whereas you get 20-inch wheels on the Evolve model. I also like how they put this sort of fake wood paneling into the dashboard. It's very British Leyland, and like British Leyland, it's completely artificial. Don't worry, no trees were harmed. But it's also got haptic feedback. So if you want to change the air conditioning, just gently press your finger against it and you feel it vibrate. It's brilliant. Let's also mention this massive center console here. And in the top spec version that I drove a year ago, this whole thing was electronically adjustable. But in the entry level version, again, they've cut costs. This is now not movable at all. It's fixed to the ground. But you know what? I don't think it matters, because how often do you really move your center console? Let's move on to space now though, and by pure chance, I am the exact same height as Paul McCartney. So Paul, if you're watching this, you'll be happy to know that you can fit into this car perfectly. There's heaps of room above my head, there's plenty of legroom, same goes for the back. Look at the amount of legroom you get back there, the headroom you get back there. There's a lot of space there. You also get a fold down armrest with cup holders in the back. Also, those seats recline. Sure, they recline about as much as Ryanair's seats recline, but they recline. What about boot space, you might be asking? Well, first of all, pop the boot manually. Yep, it's not electronic in the entry-level version. Doesn't matter. And if you happen to be watching this and you are Paul McCartney's kidnapper, then you'll be happy to know Sir Paul will fit in the back there. Yes, the Mafia test shows that someone who's 178 centimeters will fit in there nicely. Plus, check this out. That entire boot floor lifts up. Look at that. Not only that, but that rear parcel shelf, that giant parcel shelf, disconnects and you can fit the entire thing seamlessly under the floor. But if you need more space, don't worry. Drop those rear seats down and look at the room you get. You can lie down fully in the back of this car, just if you're Paul McCartney. But what about a fartment or front compartment, you might ask? Well, if you go up to the front and pop the bonnet, you will find nothing but electric car componentry. Come on, Nissan, where's the fartment? Don't worry, they've thought about it. You have not only a glove box where a glove box normally goes, but you also have this extra storage spot right here. Now, in the top spec model, that opens electronically. It's all very cool. It lifts forward and up. This one, well, it's manually adjusted, but let's face it, your potatoes, they're okay with it. As for comfort though, well, this is where the car shines. It is an immensely comfortable car to be in. First of all, we've got cloth seats. Yes, I so much prefer touching cloth instead of PVC or vinyl on a hot day, because it is a hot day. It's 25 degrees Celsius right now. But are my thighs sweaty? No. Is my back sweaty? No. Cloth is best. It's better in winter, it's better in summer, but I should add that this entry-level version does not have seated heats. Yep, there is no heating. You do get in the mid-range version leather seats with heating, and in the top spec version you get leather seats with heating and cooling. As for ingress and egress though, well, this is such a comfortable car to drive. Look at this, going over a speed bump. Oh, it glides. It's such a comfortable car. It is 71 centimeters off the ground, the seats, which makes it easier to get into than the Open Polytechnic. Yes, it's comfortable. Yes, it's quiet. It's also really city friendly, because if I drop it into drive by grabbing the selector and dropping it once, the dash now shows B mode, which means that if I were to take my foot off the accelerator, the car slows down much more than it would beforehand. It puts more electricity back into the battery when you're slowing down. And if I go one step further, and this is great for the city, there's a button here called E-pedal. If I press that, oh, I can feel it's so responsive. If I take my foot off the accelerator now, oh, it slows right down. All that electricity is going back into the battery bank, and that's fantastic. But I should point out, it doesn't bring you to a complete stop. So far, I think this is a very comfortable, accomplished car, but we have much more to discover yet. What's it like on the open road? For that, well, we need to hit the highway. We're on the open road right now. I'm going to put a few hundred Ks on the odometer to see what this thing's like, see what the efficiency's like, see how comfortable it is. First of all, I'm going to take it out of B mode, and I'm going to turn off E-pedal, and now, oh, with that, oh wow, this thing just coasts and coasts and coasts. It's so comfortable. One thing I love about electric cars though isn't just the low running costs or the fact that there's no pollutants coming out the exhaust pipe, because there isn't one. It's the fact that you can control the fuel source. So if you're anything like me, a tightwad, I put solar panels on my roof recently. So right now, this Nissan Ariya is running entirely on sunshine electricity. It's running on nothing. All you pay for is the road user charges. You don't pay for fuel if you've got solar panels on your roof. Now, not everyone can have solar on your roof, but if you can, get it. Solar in the last decade, the manufacturing costs have fallen by 80%. Now, this is not a sales pitch for any solar installer. It's just good financial common sense. Also, you cut your carbon footprint down. But if you cannot get solar for some reason, The next best thing is to join up with Ecotricity. Yes, it is New Zealand's only certified climate-positive electricity provider. All the electricity they provide to you is from wind, hydro, solar. That's where it comes from. No dirty gas, no imported coal, only the good stuff. You've got nothing to lose and your grandkids will thank you for it. Sign up at ecotricity.co.nz. Okay, now let's talk about this car's self-driving capability. It has Pro Pilot, which is basically level 2 autonomous driving. That means it'll do the braking, the steering, and the accelerating for you. You do have to keep your hands on the wheel, but it's generally a pretty good system. You end up doing very little. Your hands are just sort of vaguely holding the wheel. It's kind of like the guitarist in that Robert Palmer video. Now that's great on the motorways, but no good in the countryside. In the countryside, you're going to want to use the speed limiter. I'm going to set it to a maximum of 100, so I cannot break the law. Now let's be serious for a sec. I mentioned earlier in the video that I changed my mind on this car. And the fact is, when it first arrived to New Zealand, it was a very expensive car. It was about $110,000. I was quite harsh on it because 110 grand or so, that's a lot of money for a family car. Now, however, with the entry-level one costing 60 grand, very, very, very different car. Yes, you get fewer options, but in terms of bang for buck, it is right up there. There's no way to say this without sounding kind of pompous, but I've driven a lot of cars, I know a bit about them. And I can tell a good car when I get behind the wheel, and this is a tightly made car. The fit and finish is excellent. The ride is great, no clunks, no rattles. The feeling is secure, there's no wallow. Oh, this is good. It feels upmarket, it feels well engineered. This is not a Nissan Leaf. I do have a couple of complaints though, which are still valid from the original one. First of all, it doesn't bring you to a complete stop with one pedal driving. Not only that, Nissan engineers, what are you thinking with this? This scroll wheel here does nothing for the volume. You're going to get in the car and you're going to do this to the volume. And all you're going to do is cycle the menu on the screen. What a terrible design! Come on Nissan, you know what you're doing. This should be a volume control. The other complaint I have is that the range in this car is pretty average. 398 k's WLTP. That's not amazing. I mean, we're going to find out in the Spud score real soon what the real world range is, but 398 k's in 2025, well, it's a bit meh. Now, Nissan is not going to want me to say this because they'd rather you buy the expensive version, but the entry-level one is the one you should buy. Not only because it's the best value, but because it is the most efficient. Yeah, it doesn't have a glass roof. Only the top spec one gets a glass roof. What that means is that you're not going to be driving a glass house. Now, many Japanese cars, unfortunately, the air conditioning system is not that amazing. It's not like American cars, which have staggeringly powerful aircon, which means if you're driving a glass house on wheels like the fancy version of this, it will struggle, as I found out. I drove for 30 minutes last summer until the car finally cooled down. This does not have that problem. The air conditioning, I find, I've got the fan on medium and it's keeping me crisp. That means better efficiency, it means more range per charge. Plus, I think the entry-level version, it's just the sweet spot. It's got the right battery weight, it's got the right car weight, the handling's good. I'm struggling to find fault with it. Yeah, you don't get some options, but overall, it's so comfortable. Honestly, your kids are gonna fall asleep in the back of this car. It's narcolepsy on wheels, this thing. So yes, I've changed my tune on the Ariya. I like this entry-level version. It feels like a Japanese car, and that is a compliment. So without further delay, let's find out how far it really goes in the Spud score. Let's begin with performance, and it's all right. It's not a rocket ship, but as you can see in this 0 to 100 test, it is definitely quicker than the average petrol-powered family crossover. As for handling, it feels secure and solid on the road, and it tackles corners quite well despite the fact it is a big family car. The only thing letting it down in hard cornering is its fairly boring tyres, but if you're not an idiot like me and you drive it normally, then comfort is where the Ariya excels. The interior is a nice place to be. The noise levels are low, the cloth seats are plush. It's like being back in those comfortable cars of your youth without the downsides. Let's talk efficiency now, and even on open road country driving, I used only 16.8 units of electricity per 100 k's. Now that is pretty good for a big car, mostly because this model has the smaller, lighter battery, which means you'll likely get around 360 k's per charge on the highway and around 390 k's per charge in the city. Gadgetry's next, and it's not dripping with toys, and it still doesn't have vehicle to load, although it does have what you need, so 5 Spuds there. But is it good value? Well, the first Nissan Ariya that I drove a year ago got only 3 Spuds for value, but oh how the turns have tabled. This one's almost 60 grand less, so it results in an impressive 7 Spuds. As for charging speed, it's not terrible. I used one of ChargeNet's growing squadron of hyper-rapid chargers like these, which can pump 300 kilowatts of electricity into a car. I started the Ariya at 17% charge, I let it fill up to 80% charge, which is normal on a road trip, and it took 30 minutes. And as you can see, the charging curve peaked at 107 kilowatts, then tapered down to 63. Now, that's not a breathtaking speed, but the battery in the Ariya is liquid cooled, which makes it light years ahead of a classic Nissan Leaf. But what about style, you ask? Well, like many crossovers, it is pretty safe, not radical, 5 spuds. But is it fit for purpose? Yeah, more or less. I mean, it's the sort of car anyone can own. It's easy to use, it's very comfortable, great space throughout if you're a regular sized person, although it has no fartment up front, and the tow rating on this model is only for garden trailers, so 6 spuds. But it's the PSC which will influence your purchasing decision, and prior testing revealed, sadly, a lack of tuber consideration by Nissan's design team, with the Ariya holding just 36 potatoes in its dashboard. Bit of a letdown if you are a potatologist, but overall, the Spud score of the entry-level Nissan Ariya is 61. And there you have it, that is the guts of the Nissan Ariya, a very appealing car with a very appealing price. My only complaint would be to Nissan. Nissan, this is an excellent car. Why didn't you have this thing 5 years ago?